You're listening to The Healer's Journey with your host, Michelle Coutinho. The Healer's Journey is a collection of stories, insights, spiritual teachings, sound healing transmissions, and meditations designed to show you the way on your initiatory path. And I'm Michelle Coutinho, a modern-day medicine woman, healer, priestess, and vocal empowerment coach with a mission to be a way shower on this earth, teaching the sacred wisdom of universal love, healing, and consciousness that is threaded throughout all religion. If you are a spiritual seeker or a multidimensional soul who is looking for authentic transmissions of truth that resonate within the core of your very being and bring you back home, then I invite you to drop in with me. All is welcome here. Maurice, thank you so much. I am so grateful because we've known each other almost for 10 years, I think. And so the fact that we're having the conversation on the actual eclipse is deeply meaningful for me. And the thing that I love about you so much is I respect the philosophy that you hold, because I feel like we are very kin like that, which is probably why we're having this conversation about how evolutionary astrology is a map and a portal to work with the transformation of the soul. And I wanted to speak about that because a lot of people speak in absolutes around this is good or this is bad. And you're just like me in the sense that you say, it depends, which is that very Buddhist proverb of like, yeah, comme ci, comme ça, some good, some bad. And we have to work with the things in each way. And so today, for everybody listening, we're going to be talking about the nodal axis and integrating our opposites, which I believe is really important for the transformation of the soul and our journey in evolution of consciousness for all of us. And if we were all in reverence to that, then we would actually have peace on the planet right now, which we obviously do not, because we fight in the polarities all the time. So welcome, Maurice, and I'll send all the links and all the things. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you so much, and always appreciate to have a meaningful and deep dive conversation. So let's get,
Let's get to it.
let's dive into the nodes. And
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. Yes, and I love that you said deep dive, because I found out yesterday that you're a Scorpio in my research, and so this is definitely going to be one of those really beautiful, prayerful conversations. So, first off, let's start where exactly we are. Today is the lunar eclipse in Pisces, which means that we are closing a 2-year cycle of the Virgo Pisces axis, and we are in this transitional phase going into the Leo Aquarius. And I thought it would be good to not only talk about those two axes, if that's the right way that you say that, and what they represent, but also talking about all 6 axes and how they are really one in the integration of opposites sense. Could you speak about that for a bit?
yeah, like you say, an eclipse occurs when you have a lunation or new moon or a full moon in proximity to the nodal axis. So the nodal axis travels about 18 months per sign. And when there's a lunation, a new moon or a full moon in within 10 to 18 degrees from the nodal axis, there is an eclipse effect, which is a physical phenomenon that has obviously fascinated civilizations across the world, across time, because it is so dramatic visually. So there's a lot of mythology around eclipses, obviously. And even in modern times, it still leaves us in awe. And some people, are in a way advocating to retreat during eclipse time, go into your meditative space and do not engage with the eclipse. And others are eclipse chasers, and they go where the eclipse goes. I think both are valid, the Buddhist comme ci, comme ça, as you say, as long as the intention is right. If you understand that it is a sacred moment, that there is something, of a higher nature that is occurring. As astrologers, what we do is we use the science, the eclipse, the astronomy of it, but we understand the meaning, that it's not just a physical, mechanical thing. There is soul in that. And so that's why the nodes are now in Aquarius Leo, but the eclipse is in Virgo Pisces. So some people are confused. Why is it not in the same sign? Because the nodes are at the tail end of Leo Aquarius, and the eclipse is the very beginning of Virgo Pisces. And there's a 10-degree, you know, 10 to 18 degrees range. And that does mean, as you mentioned, that we are in this transition between the Virgo Pisces axis and the Aquarius Leo axis. And one of the things, there are so much to unpack. And I've talked a lot about that on my channel as well. But one of the main focuses of the Virgo Pisces on a collective level, on a mundane level, is that it affected a lot of employment issues because Virgo Pisces represent the axis of service. What we do as a function, how we connect with the rest of the labor force. And both signs play a role in that. And so we've seen since the node entered Virgo Pisces, that was pretty much in the United States coinciding with the Trump administration coming in. It was January, no, 2025, so 18 months ago. And we see all the changes in the labor force, the laying off and then the AI moving in and replacing jobs. So a lot of people are reinventing themselves professionally or having to make adjustments because there's a political component where another aspect of it is, because of the deportation, many farmers don't have anyone to pick up their vegetables. So, labor force issues and
Wow.
discrepancy. And then right now, what came up on the eve of this eclipse is this trade war between the United States and Canada
Hmm.
that led to, the spike in prices that can affect the labor force
Wow.
because all these economic agreement or disagreement and these high 50% tariffs, which are not sustainable for both countries, but it's kind of flexing the muscle, have an impact on industries, and that's going to have an impact on who's employed, who's fired, and it can disrupt.
Hmm.
So we see that that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it, the eclipse is a lunar eclipse. It's in the sign of Pisces, which has to do obviously with the forces of nature, the forces that are larger than us. And we see this floodgate happening
Oh,
in a sacred place, in
very,
Nepal,
very.
Tibet, right on the border there. So a lot of different expressions of those eclipses. And I
Mhm.
want to highlight that, it, for most of us, eclipses are activators. You know, there was always a fear of eclipses because the light goes out and it seems like, something dramatic and dangerous can happen.
Mhm.
But in reality, when we actually see what's going on astrologically and then in people's lives, eclipses can elevate people, can create new opportunities. It's a breakthrough moment in see it as a big vortex, just like this flood. And in a vortex, you can find yourself suddenly somewhere else, but it can be a better place as well.
Mhm.
I know that, you know, in looking back at different personal activations, I saw myself having really amazing, beautiful experiences with eclipses. So I want to kind of dispel the fear that's associated with it, knowing that the vortex has an unpredictable quality.
100%. Yeah, so this is pulling something from my personal life is that I started tracking eclipses exactly, I just figured out by listening to you at the Virgo Pisces transition into the Leo Aquarius. So the fact that we are having this conversation, because I remember it was March of 2017 when I would say my initiation portal started. And that was for me in my own chart, my Saturn return. I became a teacher. Everything's chill. It hit some Scorpio plus my sun. I was like, all right, cool. When Saturn hit everything, I have most of my things in Sag in the 12th. When Saturn hit everything at once, all of my placements, it was like falling down a mountain. This is something I talk about a lot in my work, was like this initiation. It was like, because
Yeah.
I feel like I have this old soul quality, so it was just like tough love, tough love, tough love, awakening. As I started to pay attention to that, I really saw, and I was living in Boulder at the time, which another vortex, right? A vortex of consciousness and also Buddhist qualities. So I started to pay attention to, and I was a little bit neurotic with it, which thankfully has calmed down, this jumping that could happen, meaning like you're like jumping through timelines. And I saw eclipses as doorways in the cosmos. And it's either a yes, you're going through this doorway. And then for me, because I have such a shamanic bent and I was drinking a lot of plant medicine at the time, it was like, are you acting in accordance with your future self and making decisions from the highest nobility that you know is possible? Or are you repeating the karma of the past? And this is that pull that can happen with the nodal axis, north node, south node. Not necessarily that the karma, because my south node is also in Sagittarius with all of my placements. So it's not, that's what I love about your work, is that it's not that we're saying no or dismantling something. It's that we have to integrate it possibly in a higher way, and that is this turning of the spiral, and that's what ascension of consciousness is. So that in March we were closing the Virgo Pisces. And then by August of that year, we entered the Leo Aquarius axis. So the fact that we're having this conversation is, and let's transition actually into what started this conversation, which was me commenting on one of your posts about the chapters. Because when I noticed that we were transitioning back into Leo Aquarius, but it was the North Node in Aquarius this time, where 9 years ago in 2017 to 2018, it was the South Node in Aquarius. And that's when I got just kicked out of groups, which again happens to be one of my witch wound things. So that's a personal thing for me, but it was just like such a hard, and then happened again with some of the eclipse chasers. There's a whole group of people going into that, and the universe just kind of brings me back to myself. And it's really this surrender into what is real and what is true for me that seems to be a life theme for my own karmic journey. But taking myself out of this, have you tracked that there is not a prophecy, but that's the word that's coming right now about these axes, and maybe go through what each axis represents? There's 6 of them, and how they play out in themes. So it's like every 18 years when it's North Node in Aquarius, is there a certain theme in one's life? Every half, at the half mark, is there a flip? Like, tell me more. You know more about this than I do, so please enlighten.
Yeah. To reiterate some of the things you mentioned, the
Please.
nodal axes are exact opposite points, and what they are not planets, they're point of intersection. where the path of the sun, the moon, and the earth intersect.
Mm.
So there's something about them that is, critical because the sun and the moon are, our biological clock, our calendars, everything revolves around the sun and the moon, and of course, Earth. So it's something that touches very deeply how we develop ourselves, how life on Earth unfolds. So it's personal, collective, and I'm gonna,
Yeah.
refer people also. This is material that I usually teach over, 35 hours. So it's very layered and deep and complex, and it's deep. And once you understand how these nodes function and how they work, you you can have deep insight into very important milestones of your life. So like I said, they stay about 18 months per sign, and they complete a full cycle through the six axis, 12 sign, six axis, in about 18 and a half years. So that is just the big picture. And like you say, since they complete a full cycle every 18 and a half years, the halfway point is when they reverse. So around 9 years into the cycle, um, the north node is on the south node's on the north node. And in the course of your life, you can track perhaps how that, if you can identify milestones around age 9, around age 18 and a half, and then age 37, etc. So you can keep, those ages are the same for everyone. It's going to be a different axis, but the timing of their meeting is like a spiral. It's circular at those time intervals. So the north node, the south node, are in a way representing some duality, extremes, opposites. But the purpose, evolutionarily speaking, is to um, find the middle way. It is to integrate them both. So there is what I would call an outdated interpretation of the nodes as you have to kind of get rid of the south node. It holds you back, and only the north node shows the promise. I haven't seen that um, applicable. There's theory and then there's reality. And I've seen very positive activation with South Node natally by transit. So you need to really
Mm.
master them both. But there is a difference between them is that the South Node is more familiar because that's where, you know, on a soul level, that represents your roots, that represents your past. So what you're bringing with you. And that can be a source of empowerment. So when you master both, you can get to that middle middle way point, and that's a place of mastery. Until then, you flip-flop. You go from one extreme to the other, and life through these, you know, clockwise and counterclockwise motions as you reach those milestones, there's a lesson about where are you at with these themes in your life. Do you need to reconnect with the South Node energy? Do you need to reconnect with the North Node energy? And it doesn't have to be through crisis, but sometimes it is. Um, I would also pay attention, again, encouraging you to study a little bit more about that. I'll be teaching about this, the transit of the nodes on the 31st, August 31st. So it's a session that's available. even after the date. And one of the things we will talk about is also when the axis touches a planet.
Hmm.
For example, um, as the nodes now are in Leo Aquarius, Jupiter's in Leo as well in the sky. And then Mars is going to enter Leo. And so there's going to be some kind of convergence in November about these two planets being on the nodes. Then there's also natal planets. You have a whole generation of people born with Pluto in Leo. Those born in the 40s and
In the 50s,
over the
early, my
50s,
mother. Hmm.
they're going to have the nodes eventually meet their Pluto. And so that, has significant weight and importance. So, what is this axis about? What is the Leo Aquarius about? In a deep way, it has to do with what we are here as individuals to contribute
The collective.
to the world.
Yes.
Now, different from the Virgo Pisces that preceded, I mentioned the Virgo Pisces is a service axis and labor force. So it's also what we contribute. But the Leo Aquarius represents the leadership that we all possess. So, how can we step up as leaders, find the leader within that will make, something meaningful in this world? So, there are two ways to look at that. You can be a good leader and a bad leader. The good leader is one who comes with the Leonian heart. I also work a lot with lion conservation
That's
in
right.
a literal way. So the lion energy is very dramatic. It's very flamboyant. Being in the presence of a lion is very touching and meaningful. It blows you away. But there's the deeper meaning is coming with heart. And the question that the Leo asks is why bother? Why are we having this conversation? We could just be chilling in bed and not have to worry about editing and spending time.
Totally.
So, why bother creating an event? Why bother having kids? Why bother? Everything you do is a big investment. Everything you do takes energy, takes money, takes worry. And so why not just not do anything? And so your life will be simple and plain and you won't have to worry so much about anything. That's the opposite of Leo. Leo says, no, let's do this. No, no, let's create that. Let's participate. Let's be engaged, involved. And the question is, why bother? And that's a question everyone has to ask themselves. Is it worth it? So there's a financial incentive. Maybe you want to boost your career, but there's also that aspect of wanting, believing in what you do and wanting to do something that will better this world and will add something that's missing because part of the Leo principle is to create something out of nothing. There
Mm.
was nothing on your calendar, and now there's a big event on your calendar. So you created something, you manifested something, And that will hopefully inspire, bring joy, open people's minds, etc. So this axis calls us to examine what do we want to do with our lives? How do we want to contribute? And how much energy do we have to, you know, advance those projects? Then the Aquarius end, the polarity is has multiple application, but one of them is, does this have a relevance to the greater whole? Are you doing something you like, Leo, something you believe in, Leo? But is it really helping? Is it really meaningful? Is it really necessary? So the Aquarius brings an awareness of about what's out there with more critical thinking. Think about the very easy way to understand Leo Aquarius, where Leo is the heart and Aquarius is the brain.
Yeah, totally.
So does the heart and the brain work together?
I would also say, go ahead, go ahead. Were you going to say
No,
one
no,
more thing? I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to say the other thing that's coming to me is stewardship of the king, the archetype of the king through Leo. And then obviously, if you're in, like, if you're a good king, if you have that archetype where you're super grounded, you're leading from the heart, and you are really in service to the entire collective, which could be Aquarius or whatever you're building. What I was talking about, where I was talking about my initiations, actually plays into this in the sense of when we think about the group of the Aquarius and the individual sovereignty of you understanding where your own leadership, and this I think will really resonate with the people who are going to see this through my work, because my work, because of my soul path and my karma, really has to do with unplugging from the mass consciousness to have the courage, the curiosity, sure, and the courageousness to go out on your own, because there are so many benefits of being plugged into the group. However, there are also hierarchies that are false power. And that initiation that I went through in 2017, the last 8 years, has been a deep mastery and also isolation of myself as a leader, and also having to find my own truth and courage to stand on my own. So much in the last 2 years, really, as the shifts in work have changed, as the algorithms have expanded, and AI and all of these things, which are reflecting to my personal journey that I can't find a reflection for myself in the collective. But then I meet people on my path who are starseed alien types like you and me, who seem to be bringing a consciousness that isn't quite, it's not as exalted as when I started this journey in like 2012, 2011, where I was like, we're all from the stars, yes, and I was very hopeful and all these things. And then where we turned with the phenomenon of Trump, we don't have to get political, but at the same time, in 2016, it does seem like the aliens who were running the cosmos that got hijacked, and they got held up at gunpoint, and we took a sharp left, and now we're in a neighborhood that's not exactly safe, and everybody's really feeling this different collective energy. And just to go way far, I'm curious if you know about that belief system around human design, where they say in 2027 there's going to be a big shift. And I don't know anything about that, but I'm wondering, since it's right around the corner, do you know about anything like that? And then what would you say to what has happened in the collective in the last 10 years, as we've I thought we were going in one direction, and then all of a sudden it was like, whoop, here we go.
Yeah. First of all, to just answer what you shared in your own story of having to leave the group, which is kind of a North Node in Leo energy, purpose, and understanding that coming from the Aquarius principle, there's a lot of idealism. The risk of Aquarius, if it's not aligned, is that there's a lot of high knowledge that is not applied. And so, what is the risk with that is spiritual bypassing, where people talk about high frequency and, collective uh, resurrection and
They wear mala beads,
lot, a
but they don't
lot
pray
of
with them.
Hmm?
They wear the mala beads, but they don't pray with them.
Things like that, where there's where we know what to aspire for. But then when it comes to day-to-day function, they can't stand each other, and they
This
end
is
up
it.
sabotaging or I don't have to elaborate too much on that. And so, like you say, going to the Leo North Node is to kind of validate your own self, not having to get approval and finding your own individuality, your own creativity. And now that the nodes reverse 9 years later, you may have the opportunity in the next 18 months to reconnect with the group, but on different ground because 9 years have passed. You're a
Wow.
different person. So this kind of solo group dynamic is constantly being retested. And hopefully through the spiral of evolution, you come back to the theme, but with different experience, value, and consciousness. So it's going to be interesting to see at the end of this 18 months if you'll have stories to share about finding a new tribe or creating your own in a different way.
Yes, this is so important.
And you know, definitely, like we said, the good king, bad king, one of the risk of the Leo Aquarius is that you use your gifts um to exploit. It's the leader that enslaves instead of liberate.
Wow.
So we see that, right? We
Totally.
see that around us everywhere and
Everywhere.
historically and in the present, where, who are going to build those pyramids? Who are going to build these monuments? Where do we get our slaves from this time?
Wow.
How are we going to get people who are going to help our cause, and yet they're not going to get anything out of it? So exploitation is a risk. It is also today, in the age of a lot of freedoms. On the one hand, we have everything available at the touch of a button. We can, we've never had so much access to so many things so easily. So there's a lot of privilege there. There's a lot of freedom there. But at the same time, how are we using it? So we go back to proper use, intention. And we know that the Leo Aquarius also relates to the downfall of Atlantis.
Does
Mythologic,
it? Wow.
mythologically and perhaps literally, which kind of captures this story of an enlightened civilization that ended up self-destructing.
Shadow side of Aquarius, no?
And
Because
Leo.
that's oh, okay, okay. I don't. So okay, now we're going. Now we're in the cosmic. Leaving my old questions aside, talking about the aliens hijacking. When Elon Musk was first in the car renewable energy circuit, and we did not know that he didn't get ironically hijacked, I feel, by, I mean, I don't know if I should cut this out or whatever, but I have a theory, so I'm just going to throw it at you, and if we don't want to put it in, we don't have to. Just disclaimer. I feel like through the internet, there are forces. I don't know what you feel about galactic consciousness, but I feel like there are forces that are feeding off of separation and forces that are wanting unity. And I see almost like Lemurian consciousness, Syrian, Pleiadian, which I feel very attuned to. The white lion is archetype and architecture of that. I have bird tribe, like Native American whale consciousness that comes through me when I sing. And we are wanting this very holistic, everything is one kind of frequency. And what I have seen, especially with the really dark, with the Epstein files and the white supremacy consciousness, is it feels like there is a hijack intelligence that is co-opting and going through using the technology of social media, and this has happened in the last 10 years, to feed and to separate somehow and to warp people. And Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, the friendship that they made, and the fact that it's all taking a structure of masculinity that is completely toxic and separating itself from the natural law of balance, integration of opposites, right? Reverence between all things, the mutual worship between the masculine and feminine, where we serve each other. And I feel like I have watched that split happen before my eyes so much, even in the spiritual community that I'm a part of. People are just losing their minds with the propaganda that's being fed to them. And even with the country of Israel, which I have Jewish heritage, it's like so heartbreaking for me to see, because I know in a cosmic sense the frequency of the highest light of the Kabbalistic, in those prayers and those songs, and then to see what's actually being manifest in the world is devastating. I'd love to know your opinion on those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's complex, it's layered.
Totally.
We need to always ask ourselves if we all want love and unity, why do we keep being pulled apart? What causes that? Because even there, if there are forces who are actively disruptive, why do we even respond to them? So that's
Totally.
something to pay attention to. But on a more simple level, uh, Jeffrey Epstein and Elon Musk are Leo Aquarius nodes. So they represent mastery, capacity, intelligence that is not always used for the right purpose, for good intention. If you think about Epstein, he was a mastermind in so many ways, but he was so corrupt and not just corrupt, but sick. And so what he captures the deepest shadow of the Leo Aquarius, not only because of the slavery, he talked about masters and slaves, not just because of the slavery with the trafficking of women, but because of his eugenics experiments. He had a plan to basically, in a very, we heard that from the Nazi, to create a super race by impregnating women in his ranch. And so this whole thing about creating the perfect genes and the perfect human beings and who is making that, Jeffrey Epstein is going to actually create the superhuman. That's how dangerous these things can get. Um, and so we need to look at that as a warning sign because that is one expression of this archetype, of this axis. Then, Elon Musk, like you say, came with many bright ideas and his own leadership, his own entrepreneurial spirit, and he's definitely someone with a lot of courage and a lot of
Yeah,
uh,
chutzpah, as they say.
what?
Chutzpah, as they
Yeah.
say.
And vision. But indeed, there's an element of darkness when the richest person on the planet who goes to space and you know manifests these extraordinary feats is the one who's going to gut humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable populations on Earth. And so we go back to some sinister scenarios that, under the guise of wanting to save money from, the wasteful US government, who is going to be sacrificed are the most vulnerable. And we go back to the same Epstein tangent where there's a need to maybe eliminate the undesirable. If you cut supplies, you're not immediately guilty of anything because you're not there eliminating people, but you create circumstances where they won't be able to pull up and to become who they are. So, these are speculations. But we see the results. So we go back to these individuals who, and all of us who have Leo Aquarius in our charts, and that's going to be awakened through this transit. Where are our talents? Where is the leader within? What can we do that's meaningful? And then do we, in a very Leo Aquarius way, are we a beacon of light? Are we shining where there's darkness? Or are we crushing and using, our giant footsteps to trample
Yeah.
those who are under us? Um, And the same with AI, we see the potential of AI, how AI can be amazing and how it can destroy us. So the same talent, the same technology, the same tool is available. And then what is the consciousness behind it? That is the ultimate test.
And it's the myth of Atlantis, no? Is like that when you have power, how do you use it? Do you use your power with reverence and in service to the good, or do you use it in service to your ego, which again would be that dichotomy between the integrating of the opposites of the Leo Aquarius. It's like not getting carried away and being of service to both and really being in the transcendent middle place.
And it goes back to heart and mind. If you have mind with no heart, you're dangerous. If you
Exactly.
have heart without mind, you're a
You don't do
fool.
it. Yes.
And so they cannot really be whole and function well if they're not integrated. And that's what we learn to do now. And you mentioned 2027 through the human design.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with the fact that there is a system of human design. I'm not versed in it, so I don't know enough about it to tell you about 27. But astrologically, those nodes that are in Leo Aquarius will conjunct Pluto in Aquarius.
Ah, okay. Oh,
So
that's
by
right.
the second half of 2027, we have a North Node Pluto. And then early 2028, there are massive eclipses on Pluto, on the United States axis, because the United States is also a Leo Aquarius nodes.
Okay.
So all these superpowers, all these, axis of incredible leadership are usually strong with Leo Aquarius themes. But how do they use it is always the question. So again, I'll refer people to the video on my YouTube channel that speaks about those eclipses coming up next year. It is about the Leo Aquarius node, so it's easy to find. And every time Pluto is on the node, think about the planet that ends up conjunct the node being kind of the gatekeeper, being the one who sets the tone, who is going to um, be the instrument of transformation and change. So in November, it's going to be Jupiter Mars.
Yeah, let's talk about
And in
November.
2027, it's going to be Pluto. Now, Pluto on the nodes is hard medicine. Um, it's we know the universe is intelligent, and we know that intensity has positive purposes, but it's always a risk of really going through deep shadow, deep shadow work. It's interesting that Pluto on the nodes has been very present with major discoveries like breakthroughs and even discovering new planets and discovering new um, cures for diseases. So there's something about the Pluto that can bring us back from the dead, so to speak, and expand our reach.
That would be beautiful.
But
For
it
America, I'm
has,
just
yeah,
saying, I feel like we're dead a little bit, you know what I mean? So imagine
yeah.
that would be like a resurrection, that energy of it's very
It could,
Osiris.
it could, it could bring us back to the life that we're meant to live.
I would love that. Could also not, because it's Pluto.
I mean, the risk is how to get there. Because you know, if there is a change, does it come smoothly or does it come through a lot of bloodshed, right? So there's always the question is, even when you have, you look historically and you had World War II and you had massacres and, a lot of blood and a lot of destruction. You always see that ultimately it ends, and
Then there's
then
a
there's a
renaissance.
period, there's a
Yes.
period of adjustment and wellness and all the things we learn from this time of darkness. But the question is, but how much damage do we need each time to get to those answers? Can we learn this without destroying the earth? Can we learn this not always through scorched earth policy? And that is not predetermined, It's not like there's one way to do that. Pluto's there, the lesson is there. Is it going to be the hard way or the smooth way?
Do you have advice for those of us who, like the people who would be listening to this through me, would be like, oh no, listening to all of these things, you know what I mean? It's already been, I've had to make these adjustments. I'm so sensitive, etc. And it does feel like there is a certain grace or a protection for those of us who are
Yeah.
walking the beauty way on this earth. But it has been really challenging with all these things. And so I do find myself a bit separate from the collective. And also, you know, my heart breaks and has over the last 10 years because it's like I feel like I'm shouting and nobody's listening to me because it's almost like I'm speaking in a frequency that they would rather argue. This is a big
Yeah.
thing on social media too. They hold to the pain. Even activists hold to the pain and the separation because it feels comfortable and familiar. And the idea of us moving together in harmony is actually almost like an enemy to the consciousness of where we're at right now. So what do people who are students, who are of Eastern philosophies, of the ancient ways, etc., how do we navigate when everything around us is so caustic?
I think that one of the messages, if we, maintain our focus on the Leo Aquarius, is to understand you have power. You're not powerless. You can do something about your life to begin with, not immediately about the rest of the world, but there is something, that sovereignty and that ability to direct the course of your destiny. So that Leo Aquarius axis in finding your own leadership, you become a leader of your own life. You are not a puppet. You are not, under anyone's influence unless you choose to. So it's having that recognition that you are more powerful than you may think. And then with that, find your creativity, right? Find your what you want to do with your life and say yes. So where's your passion? And follow that. Take the risk. It is not a time to hold back and stay safe and wait and see. It is a time to just, plant your seeds, go forward. Do as much as is possible in a sustainable way. Don't exhaust yourself either. But there's something regenerative about action because sometimes, especially when this axis is around, and we also have Neptune and Saturn in Aries, the
Mm-hmm.
inertia is depleting you, meaning that the less you do, the weaker you feel. If you just wait and see, if you're afraid of buying the house, if you are, don't want to travel because there's so much going on, and the more you retreat, the more depleted you may risk to be. I'm not saying, it's a one size fits all for everybody, but that's kind of the message of Leo Aquarius is don't sit back and wait for deliverance. Be part of the movement, you know,
Mm.
and start with yourself. So I would focus on that first. Um, and I think to a large extent, it is something that you won't be able to completely avoid. Like even if you try not to do, if you try, if you let the fear take over, the incentive, the call to move forward will be palpable.
It's so beautiful. That's a beautiful note to start to wrap up on. I wanted to ask you about the skip steps and the houses and what, just really quick, like what house system do you use personally? Because I find this is such a interesting space because where our nodes sit can be so different depending on the architecture of the house and the archetype that holds. Do you have a short answer for that or no?
Yeah. First of all, there's another factor to consider is that there are two ways to measure the nodes.
Okay.
One is the mean node and one is the true node. So the mean node is a mean, they take the distance
Average.
and they use it as an average. And the true node is, really um, focusing on the placements of the moon to the nodes. It's an astronomical thing. I personally use the true nodes. There's usually a 1 to 2 degree discrepancy between them, so it's not huge. But in these times of transition, it can be significant because The true node moved to Leo July 26, and the mean node moved to Leo Aquarius on August 18. So there was a 3 week gap between one measurement and the other. To me, the true node seems to hold more relevance. When we see what happened in the astrology community, as well as the world during this time, it was very Leo Aquarius. We could feel how the nodes have shifted. Then, like you say, house systems, different house system may slightly change where the nodes are landing in your chart. I personally use Coke house system.
Oh gosh, I love that it's different than one I've ever heard about. Go ahead.
But I'm not one to be overly attached. When I see planets that are, at the tail end of a house and the beginning
Hmm.
of a house, these are not firm boundaries. It's an
Mm.
overlap. So if the nodes are in one house in a particular house system and then they shift to another house in another, you may consider that they are on
Both.
that both, you know,
Yeah.
themes. And that's true for planets as well. So that's one thing. Skip steps is a concept that is often associated by evolutionary astrologers of a particular school, of the Jeffrey Green, that when a planet squares the node, it creates this concept of a skip step. I was actually trained initially by Jeff Green, but this is not something that I find that is accurately describing what a planet square the node is.
Ooh.
So I'm not on board with that
Okay,
fully.
what would you say? What would you say? What's your, because I have my Pisces moon, which this eclipse is on. My Pisces moon is 12 degrees, and then my nodes are 16 Gemini Sag. So it's ding, ding,
First of all,
ding.
it amplifies your moon. It brings a lot of presence, and that's what when we hear you speak about the unity and about all that, it's Pisces moon energy because the moon is your family and Pisces is universal. So it's kind of this universal family feeling. So when a planet
Thank you
squares
so much
that
for
is on the
listening to The
node, it's
Healer's
usually like
Journey.
we say, it's kind of a
If this show has
gatekeeper.
inspired you, then I invite
And
you to
so
send
what
it to
this means
someone
is
that you
that
love so that you can help
the
inspire them
North
too.
Node is not
And
new
if you
to
are looking
you.
for a deep dive one on one journey with
In
me, then
your
I invite you to go to
evolution, based on
michellecotino.com,
past
click the golden
lives,
link at the top, and hit apply. If you
you
want to
have
follow me on social
already
media, it's at Michelle Infinity on
reached the North
Instagram.
Node.
And that's
You've
where I
Oh,
empower my
good.
already
clients to
worked
trust
on
themselves
it,
and their voices
but
and
it's
embody
not
their
fully
soul and
integrated.
sacred
And so there
expression.
is that
It's
flip-flop.
been
But
wonderful. I am
it
sending you all
means
my
that
love, and I will see you in the
when
next episode.
most people who
Aho,
don't have planets squaring the
namaste, and
node
so it is.
can feel that the
In
North Node is
love,
a
light,
new
and
energy.
warrior
It's
spirit.
something
This is
that
Michelle
they
Infinity.
are experiencing,
Aho.
as an evolutionary process. For you, you've been there. It's not foreign, but it's not fully integrated. And so in some ways, the squaring planet shows that you are in a more advanced stage of the nodal process. And the moon can be both a disruptor
Hmm.
and the remedy to make those nodes work.
I totally hear you.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I
I
hear
hope,
that 100%. That's so true because we all, just like every archetype itself, as we're talking about integrating opposites, the archetypes, like Pisces, has the chaotic like illusioned part of Pisces, which if we follow the Porphyry system, my North Node in Gemini is in the Virgo box. I have I have a stellium and Sag in the 12th house. If we do whole sign, then it's in my relationship house, which has its own. I've spent a lot of time alone or in very unconventional relationships. And so it's such a fascinating. This is like, could be a 3-hour conversation. I know we have to wrap up. I wanted to talk a little bit about, can you say like 2 words before we do the little close tag around November and the firepower of, actually for me, it happens to be my birthday week where Mercury and Venus go direct. And I think maybe something happens with Jupiter as well on that middle week of November. So what's for all of us during that time? I'm actually going to be if all goes well, I will be in a Vipassana retreat for the first time that week.
That's interesting. What will happen in November is the planet Mars will be in Leo, the planet Jupiter will be in Leo, and it's the later degree. So this affects people who are born, middle of the month of August, middle to 20th, the month of November, middle to 20th of the month of February,
May.
And then May. So all the fixed signs.
Yeah.
And Mars is fire, Jupiter is fire, Leo is fire. So you have this immensely fiery configuration, convergence on the node. And as we said, when something's on the node, it becomes the gatekeeper. So in a very simple way, it's incredibly creative. It is a time to unleash. It's adventurous. It's magnanimous. There's something grand about this energy. And so, will it be a breakthrough for people? Will it be a time where they feel confident to follow a calling or their path? But the risk is mania. The risk is too much of a good thing, which can then create arrogance to begin with. I know I'm the best, all this kind of thing. It can also create excesses, and so you don't know, should I encourage people to just, ride their horse into the future? Or should I tell them to be careful because they may not know, it's like you spread your wings, but do you know how to land? That's kind of the question here. Do you know how to land? Because that Mars Jupiter can give you that wind on your back and that spring of tremendous energy. And so it's a time of elections, right? We anticipate that the election results in the United States will be contentious.
Of course.
And so you can have fiery temperament.
But I love what you said. So to close, perfect metaphor of integrating opposites, which is go forth and prosper, as they say in the Vulcan way. Find untapped lands within you. For me, if I'm going into a meditation retreat, it's like allow yourself to access Christ consciousness and also remember that you are not Christ. Do you know what I mean? Like really come back to yourself. And I feel like this is a huge part of my, go ahead.
No, I totally, you nail it. Because that kind of manic intoxication can lead to messianic complexes.
And we don't need any more of that. We need to be good, humble leaders going through the heart. So thank you, Maurice. Oh, it has been a privilege and an honor. I want to call you brother to speak to you in this way. MauriceFernandez.com. I'll put all of the links. You have a transit of the nodes on the 30th and then another workshop on September, I believe. Do you want to share anything else about how to get in touch with you for everyone?
I mean, yeah, everything's on the website. If you resonate with this kind of approach, a lot of options there. Look at events. There are 1 day sessions. There are deeper immersions. Some of it live, some of it is pre-recorded. So just browse and explore.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to The Healer's Journey. It is an honor and a privilege to share with all of you, and may you walk as if you have wings in this world.
Many blessings, and especially at this time of the eclipse, where everything we intend for, everything that is in the ether currently is in this vortex, so we can pray for peace, pray for sanity and healing.
Aho. Yes, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to The Healer's Journey. If this show has inspired you, then I invite you to send it to someone that you love so that you can help inspire them too. And if you are looking for a deep dive one-on-one journey with me, then I invite you to go to michellecotino.com, click the golden link at the top, and hit apply. If you want to follow me on social media, it's at Michelle Infinity on Instagram, and that's where I empower my clients to trust themselves and their voices and embody their soul and sacred expression. It's been wonderful. I am sending you all my love, and I will see you in the next episode. Aho, namaste, and so it is. In love, light, and warrior spirit. This is Michelle Infinity.